Greetings. My name is Professor Don Smith. I teach physics and astronomy here at Guilford College, and I'm welcoming you to campus on this beautiful and chilly December day. This is not the best time of year to be showing you around campus, but you're going to have to imagine everything in bloom. These are the main buildings of the central quad of the campus. They house academic units, classrooms, that's the library, more classrooms, and the beautiful rolling hills and stately trees. You have to imagine them all in bloom. Over there are dormitories and more offices. Straight across is the art building, where they have brand new studios and workspaces. That's the student union and the cafeteria and the theater. The little white building down there is a coffee shop. And then we have dormitories. All right, let's put our COVID masks on and head down to the science building. Here we are at the south end of the Frank Family Science Center, the building that houses our biology, geology, chemistry, and physics departments. Up on the roof, you'll see the domes for our telescopes, and we'll be heading up there in a moment. At the other end of the building, at the north end, is where we have our 50-foot dome planetarium. And I hope that after the pandemic is over, we'll be able to welcome you back on campus and you'll be able to come enjoy a full dome show at our planetarium. If you do, you'll want to walk down this side of the building along the east side here, and there's a door at the other end of that walkway that lets you into the area where the planetarium is, and you can see this peaked area at this section of the building at the other end. It houses the dome. But first, we're going to go up to the roof and take a look at the telescopes. Welcome to the Cline Observatory at Guilford College, our rooftop portal to the stars. As you enter or exit, you'll see here our 8-foot diameter mini dome, which we set up a few years ago to house our 10-inch telescope. And you can see there's the telescope on its mount, and there's a little pod bay over here for a workspace. And normally we have a spectrometer mounted on this telescope, but it is on loan to the 3 College Observatory right now to help them with their calibration. So that is our 10-inch telescope. There's a little door to the mini dome over here so people can go in and work, and the dome slides around. Actually, I believe those are rollerblade wheels, but it slides 360 degrees around, although we usually leave it on this side because the big dome blocks the view to the north. Most of the interesting things to see are off to the south at nighttime. Now it's just a parking lot. Anyway, over here we have 4 other piers that are all pointed north, and we have telescopes in the warm room that I'll show you in a minute that we can roll out and mount on these piers and plug in. There are power ports next to each pier, and you'll note that the dome here, the observatory up here on the deck is on these metal plates, which are quite bouncy, and you don't want to have your telescope on a bouncy plate. So the piers are actually not connected to the metal plates. They're connected directly to the infrastructure of the building. So you can walk around and bounce up and down and it won't make the piers jiggle. And I did set up one of our telescopes here. This is technically a telescope. It might not look familiar, but it's called a sun spotter, because what it does is it lets sunlight in through a lens on the front here, and that light bounces off a mirror there, another mirror there, up to the top through another lens, and projects down onto this paper. And when you get it lined up with the sun, you can see the sun appear. There we go. There is the sun projected on a piece of paper. So you can use it to draw sunspots, for example, or to let lots of people look at the sun without having to take turns peering through a telescope. This came in very handy when we were doing a public outreach event for the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse a few years ago. We could set this up and point at the eclipse, and people could see the ever-changing crescent as the moon moved in front of the sun. I was hoping to set up a telescope for you today, one of the 8-inch telescopes, to be able to look at the sun through a solar filter, but as you could see from that projection right there, there actually aren't any sunspots to look at today, so that's a little disappointing. But I do have a solar filter here, and you can see that it looks like a mirror. It doesn't look like you can see much through it, but if you look at the sun, that dot, and it looks like my autofocus is not going to be able to find it, but that dot is the sun. And if you put this filter on the front of a telescope, then you can look at it safely, which you normally do not want to look at the sun through a telescope unless you have a filter like this. But since there's no sunspots, it didn't really make sense to set up a telescope and go through all that work so that you could just look at a dot. But someday there will be sunspots and we can do this again. Over here we have the warm room, which on a chilly day like today lives up to its name. And in here we have all the equipment that students might use. We have lots of lenses, eyepieces to put on the telescopes. We actually have film cameras. Below my feet on the floor below there's a dark room, and if people want to do film astrophotography and not just digital, they can. But we do have some digital cameras for digital astrophotography, and a number of other instruments like these 8-inch telescopes, which are on wheeled carts so that we can wheel them out and set the telescopes up on the piers. And in these cases are all the eyepieces and power cords and things you would need to set up the telescope. And now I'll take you into the main dome. So here's the main dome. This is our 16-inch telescope up here in the dome. That thing right there is what's called a flat fielder. It enables us to uniformly illuminate the telescope so that then we can see sort of where the dust shadows are and if there's any irregularities across the field. And then you can compensate for that and make your sky pictures look prettier and also more scientifically accurate. The whole thing can be run off this computer down here. And these orange rails carry power from below up to the dome so that it can rotate around and the slit can open and close. And you don't have to worry about cables getting tangled because there's a metal bar between the orange plastic. The plastic protects you from touching it and getting electrocuted. But these things right here are electrical contacts that are spring-loaded to push up against the metal bars and thus carry the electricity from the power grid up and down. And there are buttons right here that you can use to open and close it and move the dome around. And I'm going to push the forward button so you can see the dome move. It gets very loud in here. It's not so loud outside, but oh, the wheels aren't quite catching. There they go. There they go, moving around. And you can open and close the dome from here. We also have in this high-tech Home Depot suitcase bolted to the wall, we have some circuit boards and relays that enable us to essentially push the buttons from the computer and let electrical current run in parallel as if someone had physically stood here and pushed the button. And that's what enables us to run the dome from the computer, which I imagine you have already seen from our open house. So that's our 16-inch dome, and those are the primary parts of the observatory. To our planetarium. This planetarium is a 50-foot diameter dome, which fits really badly into a cell phone video. We have tried streaming dome presentations in the past, and it just doesn't come out very well. The control booth is back there. We have about 130 or so seats. Plus, in a pinch, we've had kids come and sit down on the floor, which can be quite fun to lie down on the floor and see the sky wheeling overhead. I've given exams in here where the students have to identify stars and constellations up on the dome, and some students have taken their exam while lying down on the floor. This is our projection system here. You can see that there is a curved mirror up against the back wall, and the projector, the rectangular box out here in the middle, points backwards and projects off the curved mirror out up onto the full dome. And our control computer is actually down there off to the side, and we send the signal up to the projector behind me, and from there we can fill the whole dome. There's also a projector pointing forward up there, and that just uses the front of the dome as a projection screen, so that this room can be used for many different types of gatherings. And I hope that after the pandemic is over, we will be able to welcome you in here without the tape over the seats to keep people from sitting too close together.